This is Dr. Ryan Cragun, and you are listening to Gospel Tangents.
It's the best source for Mormon history, science, and theology. I'm Rick Bennett. I'm excited to have Dr. Ryan Cragun on the show. He's the author of Goodbye Religion, The Causes and Consequences of Secularization. Now, I just got his transcript done from last year, and so just in time to talk to him about this amazing new book, where we're going to talk about why is it that people are leaving religion. So you won't want to miss this conversation. Check it out. Welcome to Gospel Tangents. I'm excited to have a cross-country traveler coming all the way here to Utah. Could you tell us who you are and where you teach, and why are you in Utah?
Sure. Ryan Cragun. I'm from Utah originally, but I live in Florida now. I live in Tampa. I work at the University of Tampa. And like I said, I'm from here originally. I grew up in Morgan County. So if anybody knows that, I still have
you're
some
a Trojan.
family there.
We talked about that last time.
Yep. But my parents have now moved back to the part of Utah that my dad's side actually settled, which is Pleasant View. So
North Ogden.
North Ogden, Pleasant View. So that's where I'm staying. I'm staying with my parents.
Nice.
Yeah. So we come out once a year to visit, and we try and get a couple ski days in and just have a good time.
They don't have any skiing, I guess water skiing in Florida, right?
Yeah, we can water ski. Just avoid the alligators.
Exactly. Do you have to go out the ocean for that, or no? I don't know.
I mean, there are tons of lakes. So one of the things
But the alligators are in the lakes, right?
Yeah, yes. If they're standing water, you can just assume there's an alligator in it. So it's kind of terrifying to go walking in Florida. Yeah. I don't consider it hiking unless there's elevation change. So there's plenty of like natural areas where you can go walk in Florida. But honestly, if there is a pool of standing water, just assume there's an alligator in it. Yeah. Just assume that.
Well, and how is Tampa right now? Because you got not one, but two hurricanes this summer.
Yeah. So I came through fine. Got really lucky there. The people right on the coast, some of them were just.
Oh, you're not on the coast?
No, I'm inland, probably 4 or 5 miles from the coast. This is going to sound crazy, right? I'm at a high elevation of 27 feet above sea level. Which is actually really high for where I am in Tampa.
Oh, really? That's funny.
So that I'm not particularly concerned because I'm 27 feet above sea level.
Wow.
But yeah, like anybody 6 to 10 feet above sea level, they got hit. It was bad. It was really bad.
Wow.
Yeah.
And for the record, Utah is 4,500 feet above sea level, so we don't have hurricanes here.
No, you're not gonna have big floods coming in off the ocean.
Although I always like to check my GPS, and for some reason today, even though we're kind of in the mountains, but not really. But it said avalanche warning today.
I got those too. I've been getting them the last 3 days.
What the heck? So,
yeah.
Not on I-15. I'm not worried about I-15.
You shouldn't be. I-15 is not anywhere close to a mountain. The last 3 times, because I'm using my GPS to get around, right? I keep getting these notifications like, well, your route might change based on an avalanche warning. I'm like, I'm on I-15. If there's an avalanche hitting I-15, we've got bigger issues.
Exactly.
It's been weird.
But it has been rain here in the valley, which I don't mind. And snow in the mountains, which you're probably very happy about.
Love it.
So how is the skiing? Because I'm not a skier.
No. So it was 2 days ago. We were up at Snow Basin, and I mean, it was snowing all day. It snowed like 6 to 8 inches while we were up there. So it was funny. When we got up there, it was light snow. When we left, there was no snowing. But the whole day was just snow all day.
Was it powder?
Yeah. So that was nice. It was soft. The only issue is like, once that starts coming down, people start carving, and it almost starts turning into moguls, and I don't really like the moguls. I've got old knees. So it was super soft, but you couldn't really see because of the visibility, and occasionally you're just slamming into bumps that people have made on the mountain.
Okay.
Threw us off a little bit, but it's still a good day. It's a good ski day.
There's your ski report.
There you go.
All right. Well, very good. So remind us, just for those people who didn't watch your interview last year, remind us about your educational background, bachelor's, master's, PhD.
Yeah. So I did grow up here in Utah. I went to the University of Utah for my bachelor's degree.
A Utah man you are.
I am. And that was actually in psychology. So psych undergrad, and then complicated story, but I ended up finding sociology right at the end of my undergraduate degree. And complicated again series of events, but I ended up at the University of Cincinnati for my graduate work. So master's and PhD at the University of Cincinnati. graduated in 2007 with my PhD, and my first job out was the one that I have now at the University of Tampa. So I like to say a professor of empirical sociology. That's to contrast myself with the critical sociologists who don't always follow the data. So I'm a data guy, and I care about a lot. I care about data, as the book will, as we'll get into. So I do identify as a professor of empirical sociology, but I teach statistics, but I do mixed method stuff. So I've done interviews. I do all sorts of different methods. But yeah, that's kind of how I ended up there in Tampa. That was a good job. Nice city. It's a cool place.
Great weather.
Yeah.
Except for the hurricanes.
Except for the hurricanes. The day before we came out, we actually had people over in our lanai. So it's like a fenced-in porch, right? So it's mesh, so the bugs can't get in.
Right.
It was 73 degrees.
Oh, wow.
That's why we had people over. It was like, we got to take advantage
exactly.
of this. It was really nice.
Yeah. Well, very good. Well, and I know you're not a sports guy, but I am hopeful. I know I shouldn't say this. I'm profiting off of Tampa's misery here.
Okay.
The baseball stadium got torn all to pieces.
It did, yes.
And Tampa can't even play. They're going to be playing in the Yankees spring training facility for this year.
Is right by my house, actually.
And Salt Lake is trying to get a team. They're trying for the Oakland A's or the Tampa Bay Rays, both American League teams. So I'm happy because the Red Sox will be coming to town, I hope.
Yeah. I mean, again, I'm not wedded to sports, right? I do follow some a little bit, but it's a bit of a mess right now with the Rays.
Yeah, right.
Whether that stadium deal, I don't know how closely you've been following it. Here's the crazy thing.
Semi-closely.
I moved to Tampa in 2007. The year I moved to Tampa, they were talking about a new stadium for the Rays.
Oh.
So 17 years later, we thought we actually finally had a deal.
And then the hurricane hit.
Well, it wasn't even the hurricanes. It was the county commission and the city council in St. Petersburg. They both decided to delay their vote by 3 months. This is getting way into the weeds, and I just read the paper. I don't care, but I read the paper. They delayed their votes by like 3 months. It came then after. It was going to be before the election, the fall election. It came after the election, so people are all wondering if they were going to do it. But by delaying that vote, according to the Rays now, it's going to cost them hundreds of millions of dollars more because it delayed the onset of the construction.
Oh.
So they've now finally approved it. The council, city council, and the county commission, they've approved it. But now the Rays have to decide if they're willing to go ahead because the vote was delayed. So we may not even
Salt
get the stadium.
Lake. We've got $900 million.
Serious?
Stadium. Oh, yeah. So
I didn't know
don't know
that.
if you heard.
No.
We stole the Arizona Coyotes hockey team because we also had $900 million.
Oh, gosh.
And Ryan Smith is going to build an entertainment district in downtown, which is also coincidentally related to the Olympics, which we just won. 2034.
We just saw that. 2034 Olympics.
And so the legislature gave Ryan Smith $900 million. I shouldn't say gave. It's a tax thing. But anyway, basically gave him $900 million. And they've got the same deal for a baseball team, which is the Larry Miller Group. And they're going to build a stadium where the fairgrounds are.
Oh, interesting.
And they're trying to attract the A's, the Rays, or an expansion team.
Okay.
And I don't care who.
You just want one of them.
I want baseball. And I'll take the A's or the Rays. I don't care.
Gotcha. Just do me one favor. If you get the Rays, change their name because the Utah Jazz makes no sense.
Well, and just
it makes no sense. I get that they came from New Orleans, but come on. Jazz and Utah, like maybe people are going to hate on me for saying this, right? But like really, Jazz and Utah?
Well,
Tampa Bay Rays,
I
Rays in Utah. Come on.
I was fine with Utah Coyotes because,
That's
we
fine.
have Coyotes.
Yeah, you got Coyotes, sure.
But Ryan Smith said, no, we're not taking the Coyotes name. It's the Utah Hockey Club for 1 year, and we're going to do a vote. Hasn't been decided yet. This year, they're just the Utah Hockey Club.
Fine. Yeah.
They're 3-3-1 when I go. And we think they're going to be the Yeti.
Oh, that's
the Utah
fine.
Yeti.
Sure. That's
so
fine.
not Yetis. It's no S
Just
on the
Yeti.
end. It's just Utah Yeti. So
I'm fine with that. Just not the Jazz.
I was fine with Coyotes. But
Coyotes is fine.
There's the big joke that the Jazz and the New Orleans Saints should trade names because
Utah
the Jazz
Saints?
belongs in New Orleans.
Yes,
let's be honest.
100% it does. That's where it belongs. And I don't even follow any of these sports, but I've always just been like, come on, this makes
And the
no
Utah
sense.
Saints, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, a little weird, but sure.
Kind of Mormon-y.
A little Mormon-y. Yeah, but it would work. Yeah, it makes sense.
All right. Well, I don't have a lot of sports fans, but I love it.
That's
and
fine.
So we tied it in the Mormonism there with the Utah Saints.
There is a connection. There's a connection.
All right. You have a new book out
Yeah.
that I read and I thought was fantastic. And
nice.
unfortunately, I looked all over the house and I couldn't find it. So I
okay.
can't get you to autograph it, but
No.
I'm going to come to Tampa sometime and
Okay,
I'll get you to
sign
autograph it.
Sure.
Or maybe, remind us,
Yes.
SSSR, where is it next year?
Ooh.
Or this year, I guess.
It was in Pittsburgh. Where is it going to be this? Minneapolis. Minneapolis, Minnesota. I'm pretty
Okay.
sure that's where it's
In
actually gonna
October?
be. Yeah, it'll be in
It's
October.
going to be coolish, probably.
Yeah.
So,
But I'm pretty sure that's where it is this coming year. So
okay. October, Twins won't be playing, probably the Vikings.
Yeah,
have to
something
do it around there. All right. Well, very cool.
Yeah.
And you're a former president of the Mormon
Social Science Association. Yes,
Okay.
I was a president. I'm currently the treasurer. I was the secretary for a long time, the webmaster. But we've got other people. We've got some young blood. Shout out to Spencer Greenhalgh, who's doing a lot of the secretary stuff. He's been doing a great job. So
And Thomas Murphy is the new president.
new president. Yep. Jana Reese just stepped down. So her kind of cycle as president ended, and now Thomas Murphy's the president. And Nancy Ross, I think, is the president-elect.
Okay.
I think that's right. Or maybe she was.
That sounds right.
I've got to remember it. Yeah.
Yeah, I
like
think
that.
I remember that.
Yeah. I should know better, but yeah.
For the MSSA.
For the MSSA, not triple SR.
Yeah. And Thomas will serve 3 years.
2 years. They're all 2-year terms.
Oh, they're 2-year terms.
2-year terms.
So this is his second year.
Yep.
Okay. Well, very good. Very
Yeah.
good. Well, so let's dive into your book,
Sure.
Goodbye Religion. Why did you write it?
Yeah. So it's co-authored with Jesse Smith. I have to mention that right out of the gate. Jesse Smith is also from Utah originally, now works at Western Michigan University. And from forever ago, when he was doing his dissertation work, he was studying people leaving religion and kind of the formation of atheist identities. So that's always been kind of an area of interest of his. We started collaborating more than a decade ago on various projects, mostly just kind of small papers, book chapters, things like that. But we were at a conference several years ago, and I had been thinking about this idea of, I'd wanted to write, I've written a few books, but I wanted to write a book specifically focused on people leaving religion and like why. Why do they leave? What happens to them? Where do they go? There were a lot of papers on this, right? So lots of different papers, book chapters, a lot of stuff on this. But I was kind of thinking, one, we could provide a good theoretical framework, so we'll probably talk about that. But I also wanted it to kind of be like the definitive book. Like this is going to be the book that everybody can be like, oh, well, what does the research say on why people are leaving religion in the U.S.? It's U.S. based. So Jesse and I were at a conference, Triple SR, sat down and talked about it. And we were just kind of working through what he was working on. The timing was good for him. The timing was good for me. So we kind of just brainstormed, like, what would it look like, and hashed that out, and then just made an agreement, like, let's do it. We're going to do this. So, it took a couple of years working back and forth. And one of the things I love working with Jesse is he is very heavy on qualitative research. He's done some quantitative stuff, but he's very qualitatively oriented, and I'm more quantitatively oriented.
Oh, nice.
Right?
Yeah,
so
that's why we get along.
Yes. So it brings this really nice balance, right?
Yeah.
So I can bring a lot of numbers, and he brings these great stories that people have. And so you get both in the book, right? So the book is filled with personal accounts of people leaving religion, and then you've got data too. And so it's this beautiful mixed methods book that really turns into a nice product, I think.
Yeah,
so
it was a fantastic book.
Thank you. I appreciate that. So that's what led to it. Yeah, that was the impetus.
And so is this a Mormon book or is this general religion?
It's general religion, right? So the book is, like you said, Goodbye Religion, and it's a double entendre. I like playing with double entendres. But the subtitle is The Causes and Consequences of Secularization. We wanted to specify in the U.S. The publisher said no, that was unnecessary. So it is U.S. focused, but it's religion generally. I would say that the general ideas in there apply to the LDS Church just as much as they would any other religion. But it is kind of religion writ large is the idea. Yeah.
But I will say this, LDS are well represented in the book.
Yeah.
I mean, Catholics, I should say
they're all
former Catholics, former Mormons,
they're all in there.
former everybody.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that really struck me, I don't know where you want to start.
Oh, you tell me.
There was a table in there about which religion makes the most money, and I was blown away by the answer. Do you remember?
You mean members of the religion? Which
Yeah.
ones? Yeah. If I'm not mistaken, I mean, I've done these tables multiple times. It's probably Hindus.
It was
in the US,
Hindus, I
and
remember.
followed by Jews, right?
Yeah.
So it's Hindus and Jews. I always hate doing that because it like reinforces stereotypes about Jews being rich, and like we're not trying to do that. But did you understand the Hindus one?
The
Like, that's-
Hindus was really high.
It's really high. It's
Why do you
surprising.
think that is?
We have a sense of why. A lot of people from India, right, come over for higher education and then stay. So most of the people who come over who are Hindu have advanced degrees, an MD, a JD, a PhD, or they're in engineering, they're in tech. So they're making really good salaries because the Hindu population in the US is not huge, right? We're not talking about tens of millions of people. We're talking about a couple million. And most of them did come over for higher education. So they're like highly educated and making good money.
Okay.
So that's actually what it is.
So
It's
university professors, is that part of that?
a lot of university professors, not that we make tons of money, right? But we do fine. I'm not complaining about my salary. So yeah, it's all of that. That's basically what it is. So it is a weird finding because you're like, well, they're tiny. They don't make a, but that's what it is.
Yeah, I found that super interesting.
Yeah. So that's a fun little chart in there. Because again, what we were trying to do is show where people who have left religion fall relative
Right.
to everybody else. And they're right in the middle of the pack.
Okay.
Yeah, they're right in the middle.
So, and I want to mention another thing. I mentioned on a different interview that wasn't even related. Well, we were talking about why people leave the church.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
And I remember I was quoting you,
Okay.
but I really ticked off a listener
Oh, okay.
because I had said, and this is one of the things that I found really interesting in your book, both your
The previous
one
Yeah.
and as well as this one. So it was kind of fresh on my mind is, what do people do when they leave religion? And the answer was anything they want, right?
Yes, it's really boring. It's a boring answer.
There's not one specific thing.
No.
And so I had said, because I remember reading this, that, maybe they'll go tailgating in a football game.
Yep.
Although I didn't say that. I said, or they watch football, or they go bike riding, or they're running, or whatever.
Yep.
And I got an email from a listener that was so angry with me. She cussed
Oh, okay.
and was like, we're not just sitting at home watching football.
Well, that's probably true. Yeah.
And I was like, oh my gosh, calm down. I'm quoting Ryan Cragun. This is what he said. Don't get mad at me.
Yeah.
But I mean, there is a little bit of a stereotype about, and in fact, the response I got back was, she's like, yeah, I don't know why I was so triggered by that, but I'm not a lazy learner, which is, of
for sure.
course,
Yeah.
there was a conference address where they talked about lazy learners. People just, they don't understand, and so they just fall away. And
Yeah.
for whatever reason, because I did not say lazy learner in there,
Yeah.
but it can be triggering for certain people, and I'm going to try not to be stereotypical, but certain ex-Mormons that are angry,
It's
and
fine.
not all are.
No. The vast majority are not.
Exactly. But the angry ones, especially when I say that,
Yeah.
that most people just get bored. They're bored with church. They don't feel like going, and so they quit going. I mean, that's really what happens.
For the vast majority of people. Yeah.
But the triggered ex-Mormons get so angry that they're not typical, especially when I say that to them. I mean, can you comment on that? Have you seen that?
Yeah.
Sort of thing?
So this was actually, we at SSR, the book was reviewed by a panel of experts. And one of the things that they pointed out, which was kind of interesting, is they said, well, the book focuses mostly on people who had like a hard exit, right? That it was tough and they had to work their way out and they were like really in, and they went through, family relationships and breaking family relationships and friends and all of these things. And we're like, yeah, we did focus on that because and they're the minority. Like we say that explicitly in the book, like the people who have a hard break from religion are the minority, but they're the only ones that are interesting to write about. I'm sorry to say that, right? Because for the vast majority of people who leave, and it's probably at least upwards of 60%, maybe as high as 80%, they just drift away, right? There's no hard break of like, oh, now I'm done. Like, that was it. That broke my shelf or whatever it is, right? And like, I'm
the
done.
church is racist or sexist
Yes.
or homophobic or
was,
whatever.
Right. It's just
Why
like,
do you support such a terrible organization?
I like skiing on Sunday, right? So I'm going to go a little less, ski a little more, and eventually the skiing just takes over. And then it's like, and now I can hike during the summer. And it was never one thing. And so the vast majority of people who leave, it literally is just like a drift. And we use that language very carefully. They just slowly work their way out. There's no big cataclysmic denouement of like, oh, it's all bad or whatever. And then they just want to get on with their lives. And so that was a criticism of the book, is like, well, why didn't you focus on them? Because they're even more boring than the people we focused on, who were kind of boring, right? Like, people who leave religion are pretty normal people. That's not a big shocker, right? So the vast majority really are just like, they want to get on with their lives. They don't care about religion. Just let them live their lives. That's most of them. And that's true for the LDS church.
They're not angry at religion.
Nope, they're not.
They're fine.
They're
if
just
you want to
fine.
go to church, that's cool.
You do you.
Yeah.
And that's the vast majority of people who leave, that's where they are. It's this smaller minority. Super important, matters. That's the focus of the book, really. But they're kind of the unusual ones. And not in a bad way, right? It's just like their stories are more interesting to tell, and we're trying to wrestle through what's going on.
So do you understand, especially, let's put on your psychology hat for a minute.
Okay, I'll try.
Why do certain people get so triggered when people like you say, most people just drift away,
Right.
and they're like, no, the church is sexist, the church is racist, they do polygamy,
Sure.
they do whatever,
No,
they're
all these
anti-evolution.
Yeah. But,
And that's
tricky.
why I left the church,
Yep.
and I'm not atypical. Why do people get so exercised about that?
Sure. And to be fair to them, like, I was one of those people, right?
Okay.
So my leaving was a big one. Like, it was a big break. So I get it. And I'm not trying to minimize that. This is part of the reason why, quick tangent. Pew,
where we're at.
Yeah, gospel tangents. We're doing a tangent. Pew, when they do their research on religion and non-religion, they talk about the non-religious as, what's their terms? They've got atheist, agnostic, and nothing in particular.
Okay.
And I'm imagining, for the same people who really are bothered when we're like, oh, they're the weird ones. When you fight your way out of a religion, for somebody to then turn around and say, oh, you're just nothing in particular, is a little offensive, right? It's a hard battle to fight. I was actually thinking about this on my way over, that I had this conversation once with Armand Moss, well-known sociologist, did a lot of stuff on Mormonism, really good stuff. But he talked about people in Utah in particular, but in the church, who are raised not in like an FLDS way, but in like a kind of fundamentalist Mormon sense that there's truth and there's everything else. There's black and there's white. And if you fall in this, where it's like very orthodox, that like the bishop speaks directly with God and so do the prophets, what he said, because he didn't grow up in that environment. He grew up in California. His dad was actually a mission president. So he kind of got to see how the sausage was made, right? And what he said is, for the people who are raised in that really fundamentalist version of Mormonism, where there's like truth and everything else, there's a level of abuse that exists there, right? That they're victims of a religion that is trying to tell them like, no, we have the truth. And then they have to work their way out of that. And that's hard, right? Anybody who's been victimized by something that's just told you, we have truth. There is nothing outside that is truth like our truth. We have the truth. And then you start to realize like, wait, but you're covering up this. I'm like, that's not true. And what you're telling here that's not accurate, right? As you find those things, you actually feel betrayed. You feel like they knew what they were doing, but they did it anyway.
Okay.
And that's really like aggravating, right? Like you can get a sense, like if you've ever been betrayed by somebody, right? That's the feeling that they have.
A woman scorned hath no fear.
See? Like it's that level of betrayal, because like some of this, Fawn Brody knew a lot of this stuff, right? Like people have known stuff for decades, going on centuries, right? That people have known about all of these little things. Why am I just finding about it now, right? Why isn't the church being transparent about it? And I think they are better these days, right? So they've got the gospel topic things up, and they've got all these things here. But if you're not raised in that environment, which I was not, right? I was raised in an environment where it was like, nope, there is truth. The bishop speaks directly with God, and if you lie, he will know, right? No, he won't. The reality is, no, he won't, right? But no one tells us that. And so when you're going through that process, it's really hard because you're rewiring your brain. You're rewiring all your thought processes. And once you finally get out, you're like, wow, they knew the whole time. They knew all of these things that I was trying to figure out. Why didn't they just raise me that way? You feel betrayed. So there is a genuine sense of betrayal. And then for somebody to minimize it was like, well, you're kind of weird because most people just walk away and they're fine and they don't like fight against the church. And you're like, yeah, but the church betrayed me. The church violated. I was a victim of the church. That's the mentality that you have to adopt to understand what they're going through, right? Because that's how they feel. They genuinely feel that way. And I'm not minimizing it at all. That is absolutely how they feel. They're angry. They're pissed off because they feel like somebody did them wrong. Does that make sense?
It does. Is there a way, because I think especially church leaders would love to be able to predict who's going to feel betrayed and who's not. I hope you enjoyed our conversation with Dr. Ryan Cragun. He's the author of Goodbye Religion, along with Dr. Jesse Smith. In our next conversation, we're going to talk about why people stay or leave religion.
I don't care if people are religious or not. I care if you're an asshole or not, right? Sorry, don't mean to joke. But like, are you a jerk? Are you mean to people, right? That's what I care about. If you're a religious person and you're a decent human being, cool. I don't have beef with you, right? It's the one who's like, no, if you're not part of my religion, you should die. Okay, now we've got an issue, right? Because like you're literally saying, I can't exist.
Or if you're part of the religion, you should die.
Yes, right. We find a balance here, people, right? So I don't care anymore. I'm way past that. And I'm not saying that like I'm better because of that. I was there in the angry stage. I totally get it. And I'm not saying that you have to leave that. Like if that works for you, so be it. But where I am now that I'm like, some of my best friends are really religious individuals. Now, all of them are very nuanced in their religion, right?
Thanks for listening, and I hope you to continue to enjoy Gospel Tangents. Consider becoming a Patreon or go to gospeltangents.com/shop, and you can get a cool tie, a hat, or even a nice mug. You can also get a sweatshirt, so check it out at gospeltangents.com/shop.